Hi, Nick. So I'm Kami. I'm from the mamadiaries.com. It's so nice to meet you and speak with you today.
Yeah.
I loved Gigi and Nate. It was such a beautiful film. I think that, everyone will be able to relate to it on some level, and it was incredibly inspirational. I'd love to know what first appealed to you about the story. What made you want to take on the project?
I think that because I heard that this program existed of service of providing service monkeys to disabled people, and initially I was suspicious of how this worked and how it could work, and then when I investigated it and found out that actually it had been going for quite a long time and started in the 60s in Boston, and had been the early work had been done with young men coming back from Vietnam, who had suffered both mental and physical injuries, and they were looking for ways to help with their rehabilitation. And so early research on animal human rehabilitation was fascinating. And as and that really was kind of, I thought that was very interesting. And then I thought, well, actually, then that's kind of, that's been going now for 30, 40, 50 years. And now it's stopped. Now it's over. It doesn't exist anymore because it's been shut down because of political, I guess, necessity or political reasons. And I thought that was a crying shame. When I investigated that more, I thought to myself, well, why should someone else have the right to say to a disabled person, you cannot have this or you cannot have that? Where does that right exist? And why do you have that right to say that somebody in California can't have a monkey, but somebody in Texas can, right? And I thought to myself, well, there's a political debate here, which is interesting, and there's an emotional debate. And so much of politics is not emotional, but actually politics is emotional in the end, and it is about people. So that's why I did the movie.
Gigi and Nate, it's such a unique story, especially in regards to like the on-screen representation of a disabled person. And I know that it's based on a true story. So did you do any sort of, I'm sure you did any sort of like research. What did you do to kind of, just make sure that you were representing the story accurately?
What I did is obviously, I knew Ned and I knew that story of the family, and we had lots of meetings and correspondence. But I was also very conscious that it wasn't just about Ned. It was about, I guess, a lot of people who had service monkeys over the years or service animals over the years, and how they'd learned to survive or how they'd learned to work with them, and there were lots of different, very emotional stories that you could, and I wanted to have that freedom, I guess, within the movie to be able to incorporate all of these other elements in the story, right? And to let the story live not so literally as one person's event. So that's why it's inspired. It's not an actual, just straightforward retelling of Ned's story at all. It's using elements of Ned's story, and it's using elements of other people.
So what is it that you're hoping for the audience to take away from the film?
Oh, I mean, look, I have very limited ambitions in terms of what anybody takes away from anything. I mean, we're in such a strange world where content is so prevalent and there's so much stuff that I wonder how much anybody's actually affected by anything these days. So I sort of it's like, when you can be affected by a tweet as much as you can be affected by an hour-and-a-half movie, then we're slightly in a different emotional landscape than, So I don't prescribe anybody's feelings ever about films. I just make them, and I just try and make them the best I can. In the most interesting way, and then it's up to the audience to take what they want from it. But for me, I like the idea that this movie, the whole family can sit and watch this film together. They can wrap their arms around their kids, and their kids can wrap their arms around their brothers and sisters, and there's a sense in which we're all going to go on this journey together, and it's going to make everybody feel really good. And I suppose sometimes that's what entertainment just has to do. It just has to make you feel, that's part of our job, which is to alleviate that.
As a mom, I greatly appreciate a family-friendly movie that we can all watch. My boys they're almost 9 and 13, and it's sometimes hard to find something that, they both enjoy, but.
Did they watch it with you?
Yes.
And they were into it, right? Because even though they didn't want to be at the beginning, I guess they were into it, right? Yes, that's what happens, especially boys. You drag the boys kicking and screaming. And all the girls always love the movie, but the boys go, I don't want to watch it, all soppy. And then within 5 seconds, they're all crying. And then they're the ones watching it more than the girls, which is very strange. But yes, good. I'm glad. That's the point of it.
So were there any challenges working with, Allie, the monkey, on set?
Well, yes. I mean, there's lots of challenges working with an animal because they never do exactly what they're told to do ever. Right. And they're much more interested in the peanut butter that they're going to get at the end of the reward, because they work to a reward situation. So you train them to walk from one end of the table to the other. So they do that. And if they pick up the pen, then they get peanut butter. Right. And if they walk and they don't pick up the pen, they don't get peanut butter. And the peanut butter is just like on the trainer's finger. So the whole, and then Ali used to get very used to action and cut. And she would understand on cut, she got fed.
Very smart.
Right. So, and it didn't take a long, it took a couple of days. I used to realize when that clapperboard says cut, oh, hold on, I get peanut butter. So she would try and rush the process and get it wrong. And I wouldn't call cut. And then she'd get angry. And but then I called it, she got peanut butter. So you kind of have to, they're very, very, very bright. I often think they're brighter than half the crew. Right. So I think if you put, there's they're really genuinely, they have cognitive ability. And so it's a very interesting, working relationship, working with animals. They are breathtakingly interesting on every level.
Service animals in general have always fascinated me. I really, really love the story. I've never seen them.
They just have an ability that I don't know, it's kind of, especially when you spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks with the same one, you really get to learn and know each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ali used to come just sit on my neck, or she'd sit on your head while she was waiting between takes. You're not allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to touch her. So she would jump on the sound man, jump on the boom. She thought the boom was a great place to sit, right? Because there was a big pole that she could see was just above her head. So she'd look at it and then she'd just jump on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.